The Smiley Face Killers. Dozens of white college-age men dead from accidental drownings, but a team of retired detectives say that the boys were drugged and killed by a shadowy gang with a sinister symbol. All the young men fit the profile of smart, athletic, popular, college-age white men who went out drinking and never came home. To date, since 1997, there are over 350 cases that are linked or tied to in some way to this group around the US. About 30 of the men had the drug GHB in their system after going out to bars and drinking, according to the autopsy reports. One of the retired detectives working on the case said, "The level of sophistication of the group is a lot greater than we had imagined," he said. "Now we know that they communicate with each other on the dark web. We know there was surveillance and counter-surveillance. They are targeting the best of the best. These kids are the best students. They are the best athletes, and they come from the best families." This is terrifying, Anons. Are any of you familiar with the story? On the night of December 15th, 2016, Dakota James, a 23-year-old graduate student at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, called his friend Shelley in a panic. He was cold, disoriented, and scared, wandering the streets late at night, unsure of where he was or how he even got there. "I don't know where I am," he sobbed to her. "I'm so cold. Please help me. I am lost." Shelley immediately rushed to find him, guided by his texts and location services on her phone. She found him near a hotel in Pittsburgh's South Side around 11:40 p.m. He appeared frightened but sober, not physically harmed or intoxicated. Dakota told Shelley he had left his work Christmas party and went out with coworkers, but then he experienced a complete blackout of about 4 hours in total. He said that he approached police officers earlier in the night but received no help. Still shaken, he declined to go to a hospital and just wanted to go home. What exactly happened to Dakota that night remains a mystery. Shelley later wondered, was he stalked, drugged, or attacked? Could he have disappeared that night if she had not found him? 5 weeks later, Dakota vanished after another night out with coworkers. On March 6, 2017, 40 days after his disappearance, Dakota's body was found floating in the Ohio River, about 10 miles downstream from where he was last seen. His death was ruled as an accidental drowning by local medical examiners. However, retired detectives and experts suspect something far darker. They believe Dakota James is one of approximately 100 victims of a secretive, alleged organized gang known as the Smiley Face Killers. The group is said to operate nationwide through discreet calls, communicating via the dark web, and targeting young, athletic, college-age men who often go out drinking and never return. Many victims, including Dakota, were found in bodies of water weeks after disappearing, sometimes with graffiti featuring smiley faces or other specific symbols nearby. The presence of the drug GHB in many victims' autopsies adds suspicions of foul play. Kevin Gannon, a retired New York police sergeant who has dedicated years to investigating these cases, says Dakota was clearly murdered. He points out inconsistencies in the official findings, noting Dakota's body showed few signs of water exposure despite traveling pretty far downstream, had no major injuries, yet exhibited what appeared to be ligature marks around the neck, suggesting strangulation. Adding to the mystery, an $11.99 purchase was made using Dakota's PayPal account 2 days after he vanished. There was also suspicious smiley face graffiti found on the Roberto Clement Bridge, the closest bridge to where Dakota was last seen, though it is unclear if it was there before or after his death. Gannon and his team say the graffiti often appears in the first man-made structure, visible from where the victims' bodies are found. Gannon and his team, including former NYPD detective Anthony Duarte and criminal justice professor Lee Gilbertson, have produced a 6-part series titled Smiley Face Killers: The Hunt for Justice to bring the proper attention to these cases. They believe the killings are linked to a dangerous domestic terrorist group, but have struggled to gain support from law enforcement or medical examiners, who maintain that most of the deaths were accidental drownings. The FBI and many police departments have dismissed the theory, as have groups like the Center for Homicide Research. Still, Gannon remains undeterred. It has been a difficult road. We felt like there was no other option but to go public and appeal to the court of public opinion. Among the few successes in changing the official stance was the case of Chris Jenkins, a 21-year-old Minnesota student who vanished after a night out in 2002. His death was first ruled accidental, but later reclassified as homicide after 4 years of persistent efforts by his family. The families of victims like Dakota James faced frustrating roadblocks. Dakota's parents were denied access to his body after it was found, only allowed to see a tattooed ankle. They only received autopsy photos 17 months later, which revealed potential strangulation marks. Despite repeated requests, local authorities have been slow or unwilling to revisit the findings. Pam James, Dakota's mother, said, "Someone did something wrong to him, and we need to find the answer. It's not just about my son. It's about helping the other families out there that need the information." The Smiley face killer's theory traces back to 2007, when retired NYPD detectives Anthony Duarte and Kevin Gannon began noticing disturbing patterns. Young men, mostly college students, disappeared after nights out drinking, only to be found drowned in nearby bodies of water. Many cases were scattered across multiple states, from Ohio to New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. What made these deaths suspicious was several key factors. Victims often showed no signs of struggling or major trauma, yet had evidence suggesting possible foul play like neck bruising or ligature marks. Drugs such as GHB were frequently found in toxicology reports. Smiley face graffiti was found near many discovery sites, sometimes dozens of miles apart, but featuring similar style and placement. The victims shared common profiles: young, fit, socially active males often attending college or university. Duarte and Gannon theorized a sophisticated network of killers operating across state lines, using dark web forums and encrypted communication to coordinate attacks and cover the tracks. They believe the smiley face symbol is a signature or calling card left by the perpetrators to taunt authorities or mark their kills. Experts in cybercrime and digital forensics, interviewed for the investigation, support the idea that these killers could be using hidden dark web channels to recruit, communicate, and share information without detection. Groups like this thrive in the shadows of the internet, says Dr. Maria Lin, a cybercrime analyst. Encrypted messaging apps and the dark web provide perfect cover. However, despite these compelling patterns, law enforcement agencies remain skeptical. They argue that accidental drownings are unfortunately very common among young people who drink excessively near water, and the smiley face graffiti may be coincidental or unrelated vandalism. The FBI officially stated in 2012 that there was no evidence of a serial killer or organized group behind these deaths. Still, the families of the victims disagree. They believe that labeling the deaths as accidents ignores the evidence of drugging, potential abduction, and the disturbing graffiti. Many have formed support groups and advocacy organizations demanding deeper investigations and federal involvement. Pam James has joined forces with other families and says, "We want justice, transparency, and to make sure that this does not happen to anyone else." Meanwhile, the media attention from the Smiley Face Killers documentary series and podcasts has sparked renewed interest. Several cold cases have been reopened, and independent investigators are analyzing evidence with new forensic technology. One chilling aspect is the implication that these killers specifically target young men in a predatory, ritualistic way, choosing victims who might not immediately be missed or whose disappearances could be dismissed as partying gone wrong. This secrecy and the lack of conclusive proof have allowed the alleged network to operate undetected for years. The phenomenon also raises questions about societal blind spots. How often do cases involving vulnerable young adults fall through cracks? How quickly do authorities rule out homicide in favor of easier explanations? As the investigation continues, the legacy of victims like Dakota James reminds us that sometimes, beneath the surface of tragic accidents, there may lie a much darker truth. So, I got the chance to visit my old high school buddy, Danny, shortly after I graduated college. I was going to stay a few days with him and his new wife, Carolyn, so I packed a few days worth of clothes and drove to Shenandoah Valley in VA. I get there, and it's hot as a motherfucker and just as humid. We say our hellos, introduces me to Carolyn, and we head inside to eat dinner. Carolyn seems nice, somewhat reserved but curious about me and my friendship with Danny as kids. She lets me and Danny do most of the talking, but asks some good questions to steer along the conversation. Lots of smiles, she was. After dinner, she and Danny cleaned up, and I got to spend some time getting acquainted with their dog. His name was Truman. He's small, shook all the time, and never shut the hell up. One of those yippy dogs that thinks it's bigger than everyone else around it. He did not bite though, so I didn't really mind. Once the table was clear, Carolyn leashed up Truman and took him out for a walk. Danny and I moved to the living room and caught up over the last few years. He popped open a beer and was really enjoying the AC, as was I. We somewhat lost track of time, and Danny had noticed that it had grown dark out, and Carolyn was usually back by now. He didn't seem too concerned, as sometimes she took Truman out the long way around the neighborhood. It's a small one, and close to the edge of the state park, where there were a lot of hiking paths that lead off. Some circle around and back to the street, so it's a good way to get a nice walk in. We keep talking, and I realize that nearly an hour has passed since she left. Danny has kept looking, eyeing the time on his phone, and finally picks it up to text her. Even on the long walks, she is not usually out for this long. Just as he hits send, the front door opens. Truman shoots through the door. He did not make a damn sound as he sulked straight under the couch and did not come out. I can't see out the door from where I'm sitting, but I caught a slight whiff of something foul. I can't really describe it, but it was strong enough to leave the taste of copper in my mouth. The smell went away just as quick as it had come, and slowly, Carolyn steps into the house. She was slow and shuffling. There was a slight hunch to her, like she was worn out, and damn did she look it. Her knees had a slight gait to them as she walked in, leaving the door open behind her. After a few paces, she stopped, still holding the leash, and not turning to face either of us. Danny shut up, and, after closing the door, went up to Carolyn, asking if everything was fine. He slowly turned her to face him, as she looked real woozy, like she was about to fall over. Her mouth worked open and shut a few times, like she was trying to find the right thing to say, but nothing was coming out. Finally, she was able to wheeze out, fine, though it sounded anything but. Danny held her forehead, then mumbled something about getting her some water and aspirin and left for the kitchen. It took me a moment for the creeping feelings to settle on me. It wasn't the smell or the awkward shuffling that did it. When I think back on it, I believe it was when I finally noticed that ever since she stepped through that damn door, she did not blink once. Being all gentlemanly, I asked Carolyn if she wanted to sit down and offered to take the leash. I was a bit nervous, but not enough to still feel helpful. As I reached down to gently take the leash from her, I realized something else. It could have been the half a beer I had, or the fact that I had just finished driving 8 hours to get here that day. But I could swear that her right arm was slightly longer than her left. By slightly, I mean by at least a few inches. It could have been the way that she was slightly hunched over, or maybe her left arm was bent in such a way that I did not notice, but the entire proportion just seemed off. Still not taking the tingling hint to get the fuck out of there, I asked her if she did anything to hurt her arm. She slowly turned her head to regard me. Arm, she repeated, then twisted her head down to regard it, like just now, noticing it was there. I shit you not when I say that her arm spasmed as she eyed it. Then, after a few cracks and pops, it seemed to shrink down to the right size. She then turned back to me for a moment, then shuffled past me into the hallway bathroom, the door closing behind her. It was at this point that I noped right the fuck into the kitchen, where Danny was just coming out. I grabbed him by the arm and pulled him back into the kitchen. I told him that I think something was very wrong with Carolyn and explained what I just saw. He stood quiet for a few moments, just listening to me. His eyes looking behind me into the living room, he finally said, "I'll go check on her. She should be fine though." He looked like he was trying to convince himself more than me. He went and knocked on the bathroom door before entering. The door was closed behind him, and, for a few minutes, I could only hear his muffled voice. I was still creeped the fuck out, but stood my ground, waiting to see if I needed to shift into full fight or flight mode. Not long after, the door opened, and Danny stepped out with Carolyn not far behind him. He smiled at me and said, "It looks like she just got overwhelmed by the heat. I'm going to go ahead and take her up to bed. I will be back down in a minute." I then looked at Carolyn, who was holding the water bottle that Danny had brought her. It was half gone, so it seemed to click with me then that she could have been dehydrated. But Jesus, that arm. I can't just unsee that shit. He helped her upstairs, and as they were climbing, I thought I could hear Carolyn rasp out, "Be back." I wanted to note right back into my car and drive off, but that would instantly turn me into Mr. Shitty Friend, and social pressure finally won over instinctual fear. Frustrated, I sat down on the recliner and eyed Truman, still huddled under the couch. He had not made a single noise since getting home, and he looked scared shitless. I gently patted my knee to call him out, and he refused to budge. Well, fuck him, I tried. It was dark and quiet, and I did not realize that I had calmed down enough to doze off. It took a really fucking weird sound from upstairs to wake me up. It was quiet and muffled, but low enough to rumble the seat slightly. It was a repeated sound, and the only thing I can compare it to was a giant cat hawking a hairball. I am not sure why I was stupid enough to do this. Probably that sense of duty among friends, but I got my ass out of that chair and slowly made my way upstairs. The guttural hawking noise did not stop, and it was definitely coming from Denny and Carolyn's room. That foul stench was back, and pretty damn potent too. The combo of the smell and the noise was almost enough to empty my own guts. I reached the door, which was, of course, closed, and I was getting closer and closer to flipping the fuck out as I neared it. Why am I doing this? What the hell are you doing, Anon? Get the fuck out, I thought to myself. But no, I didn't. Not for a few more minutes anyway. I knocked on the door, hoping they were just doing some kind of kinky fucking that I did not want to picture. The retching sound continued. I stood there, looking like an awkward dumbass for a minute, before knocking again, this time asking, "Is everything alright in there?" More hawking and retching. The damn noise was not letting up. I steeled myself, in case my friend was in some real trouble. I wanted to know what to describe to the cops when I decided to finally call them. I reached for the doorknob and twisted it open. What I saw was, all in the span of a few seconds, before I registered enough to decide to nope straight the hell out of the house and drive away. It looked like Carolyn, almost. The top half of her was really wide. What should have caught my attention first were the two monstrosities poking out of her shoulder blades, like an extra set of arms or some shit, only somewhat bony and jointed, like the limbs of a flesh-colored insect. They arched over her and back down onto the bed in front of her. I then noticed her mouth. It was open wide, far wider than it should have been. Something was emerging from it, like a dark and wet sack of something, and her entire body was convulsing as the thing slid further out of her mouth. It was hanging over what I finally noticed was Danny. Her body was so wide that I at first did not see him underneath her. Danny was quite dead, or unconscious with a shit ton of blood loss. Red was everywhere. The bed, the walls, the floor. It was especially all over Carolyn, though I doubt much, if any, was hers. Without stopping whatever the fuck ritual she was doing over her husband, she looked up. This was when I noped down the stairs, grabbed the keys off the counter, said fuck it to the bag of clothes I left upstairs, and drove the hell away. I'd like to say I called the police right then. I didn't. My God, I didn't. I drove for 4 hours, constantly checking my rear view until I could not see straight, and then stopped at the next motel, bolted the doors, and slept with all of the lights on. In the morning I called the authorities and placed an anonymous tip to have them check Danny's address. It was after a week since returning home that I had Googled their names. A small article appeared on the local news site that stated that he and Carolyn were missing from the residence. No sign of forced entry or any blood or struggle. The only puzzle was that both of their cars were left parked in the garage. I can still hear that retching, feel the vibration of it in my chest. It makes me glad that I never gave Danny my new address. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. Be May 20, like 3 months ago. Driving to Seattle from Spokane for a concert with GF and her best friend. Spokane to Seattle has a ton of middle-of-nowhere type driving, as well as a large mountain range you have to pass. Drive over goes fine, but feel kinda weird going over the pass. Feel like I'm being watched. Side info, we left at 9 PM on a Friday, so we got over the pass at around 1 AM I think. Well, whatever. Go to concert. Get shit sleep in a Motel 6 in SecTac, a great place to get shot. Slam GF while her best friend is in the shower. Start driving back at 11 PM Sunday. Started off riding in the back. More info. We took my GF's friend's Matrix over there, which is lowered and runs some serious mods as well as a supercharger. Weird thing to do to a Matrix, I know. Right before we get overpass, my GF's friend says I should drive because she is feeling tired. Hop in, set cruise at 70, start heading up pass. It gets freaky during the next part. Driving up the pass, start feeling a little anxious. Chalk it up to it being light and still having Molly after effects. The higher I go, the more uneasy I start to feel. Starting to cross the range and drop back down the other side. GF and friend dead asleep. Service drops out and Spotify stops playing music. Realize I can't hear anything other than the car. No other cars anywhere. This is pretty much the only direct pass into Seattle from that side of the mountain, so there is always semis at least. Start feeling like a terrible ominous feeling. Turn cruise off and get up to 80. Still feeling it. Feels like the last 10 seconds of a terrible nightmare. See something for a split second to the right of the car in the lane beside me. Car slides 3 or 4 feet to the left as if it had been T-boned but no noise. Tires scream. Fucking Jesus Christ, nope, fuck this. Cram that pedal down. Supercharger comes on. 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, up to 140. Literally flying down the pass. Get to the bottom, and still feel like there's something in the car with me. Go about 10 minutes past the bottom of the pass, then slow down to 110 to 120. Shit. Why aren't the girls saying shit? Still dead asleep. All of my watt. Pull off at rest stop about 30 minutes later. Feeling better. Pound energy drink and try not to think about it. Inspect car, expecting to see massive denting, etc. Not a single fucking thing. All I find is 3 small tears in the plastidip on the passenger doors that form 2 almost perfect equilateral triangles placed at the same level and are identical in size. Still sort of creeped out, so cruise home at 90 miles per hour roughly. I'll say a few things in my next post. Okay, so maybe not the spooktastic thrill of a lifetime, but here is the weird part. Talking to friend and GF 3 or 4 days later. So, you guys slept pretty well on the drive back. Yeah, I just had a bad dream. Oh yeah, what happened? I am starting to feel a little worried at this point. It seems too coincidental. GF then explains how she was having a dream, and somehow, it turned into us driving up the pass, just the way we had been. Me driving, friend in front seat, her in the back. She started feeling scared in her dream. All of a sudden, the car in her dream screeches 3 to 4 feet to the left, rolls X amount of times, and slides into the barrier. She lived. Friend and I are horribly mangled in wreckage and very obviously dead. She is crying in real life at this point because she is remembering it so vividly. Her friend looks white as a ghost and is absently staring. GF notices too and asks her what's wrong. She starts bawling her eyes out and tells us how she had the exact same nightmare, except it was GF and I who died. So, yeah, I don't know X. I have looked with you X-Files for years, and I don't know what this is. It freaks me out to this minute, like, what the fuck? I don't know what I saw next to the car, but it was something. And when I say that the car moved sideways, I mean sideways. Not like I fishtailed or something. Also, the pass was completely dry, no ice, and seriously, they both had that dream. Like, what the actual fuck? Seriously, does anyone have any ideas? And the way it made sound was that they both remembered this dream in near perfect detail. Not what happened in the dream before driving the pass, but once they were on it, they just had a disturbing amount of memory of the events. Anyway, sorry if my green texting sucks or anything, but for real, any input would be nice. Be me, 6 years old, live in South Virginia. Grandparents have an unknown hidden graveyard in their yard, deep in the woods. About 3 to 4 graves in total, that is it. Grandfather and I would hike through woods, and one day, he decided to show me. Recent storm had blown through. We find the graves. They are basically just cement slabs in the ground with no markings, covered in moss. Grandfather walks over to an overturned tree where the ground is exposed. I follow suit. An exposed skeleton is laying in the ground. I only saw the skull. I remember him acting really odd, and he just looks at me and says, "That's the head of the grave." There were also holes near the graveyard that you would step on, and they would sink down as if you were being sucked in. We used to think it was corpses grabbing us out of the ground. Out of all the woods I've been in, I've found some of the weirdest shit near my house. Hiked for a few hours, like at 10 years old, with my cousin. We come across a junkyard full of old cars and tires in the middle of the woods, with no road access at all. Came across a chimney once. Again, no road access nearby. We found literally thousands of golf balls, and used to collect them in buckets and sell them to the country club. On the subject of Appalachian, in the Blue Ridge Parkway near Stewart, Virginia, if you hike for a while on one of the trails that takes you to a peak, you can deviate from the trail for a minute, and there is a massive slab of vertical rock sticking out of the ground. Hidden behind it is some kind of ceremonial thing. Someone places new flowers behind it quite commonly. Actually, out of the 15 or so times I've been there, there has always been fresh flowers. I am assuming someone died on the trail. Oh, and we called the city about the exposed skeleton, and they reburied it in the same site. The Historic Society told us it was a freedman's graveyard. I guess they could not afford coffins. And to add to the first story, that is all I remember. Him turning to me and saying that. The rest of it is void to me, which is really weird. It's just like things faded to black. I had nightmares about it for years. I remember after he said it, I turned and ran home through the woods. I guess I was filled with so much adrenaline, I just forgot what was going on around me. Work fast food part-time for extra bucks. Do kitchen work mainly. Guy who trained me ended up getting murdered by his own brother actually. Still not sure why. Think it might have been over a woman. This dude now haunts the kitchen. Everyone knows it. Most of us have seen him. Those who haven't have at least heard/felt his presence. Personally, I've caught fleeting glimpses of him moving quickly past the oven and around corners. Other times, I just get the creeps suddenly, like I am being watched. This one is really common. Other times we hear him cough. This is extra creepy when you are alone. On certain nights, I have to finish up the shift entirely by myself. The last 30 minutes will just be me cleaning, then shutting off the lights before I lock up. This is always the worst part of the night. Feels like someone is right on your heels the entire time you are walking around. Thinking about this just now actually gave me the creeps, heck. Shutting off the lights requires going to the very back of the restaurant and walking all the way to the front in total darkness. I got in the habit of telling my old trainer, "Good night, sir," mainly to ease my nerves, but he also seems to like it. Creepy feeling dissipates as soon as I say it. Reoccurring dream with a guy with multicolored face paint. Think pic related, but different colors. I am in a business park of sorts. Extremely run down, Mad Max-esque looking place. There is 2 one-way streets, with grass separating them. I am walking up one. Man is coming down the other one, the opposite way of me. I keep an eye on him as he walks by me. He crosses the grass a few meters behind me, and suddenly starts sprinting after me. I am barely faster than him. Pure fear and terror. The road leads to a tunnel. He gets slightly closer in the tunnel. I see a light up ahead. It's the entrance to an airport. I am just about to get in the airport every time, right as he catches up to me. He stops at the door and watches me until I disappear out of view eventually. Last time I had the dream, he did not stop at the airport. I woke up after he followed me inside of the airport. I have never been so scared in my entire life. I woke up absolutely soaked in sweat and was extremely anxious. I have not had the dream since then, but I am generally terrified about what will happen next time, since I don't have any way out of his clutches.